Tonight on American Greed Bonus Edition. America is at war, and David Brooks is making millions. Brooks says his bulletproof vest saved troops' lives. But what Brooks really wants to save is money.
You have to reduce the pay. You have to produce more. What's all this quality control crap?
And those bulletproof vests, they aren't all that bulletproof.
The vest failed, and someone who was wearing it could have been killed or severely wounded.
But David Brooks doesn't look worried. He's got money to spend on parties, vacations, racehorses. And this Patriot's way of honoring the red, white, and blue? A $100,000 belt buckle made of rubies, diamonds, and sapphires.
He's a patriot, my ass.
November 26, 2005. A big night at the Rainbow Room in New York. The occasion? The bat mitzvah for 13-year-old Elizabeth Brooks. Her father is a businessman, David H. Brooks, the man in the pink suede suit. A live band is a good way to get a party going, but rarely has there been anything like this. Brooks hires Aerosmith, 50 Cent, Tom Petty, the Eagles, and Kenny G. The party gets a fitting nickname, the Mitzvah Palooza, and is said to cost as much as $10 million. Later, as news of the event spreads, people are asking, who would spend that much money on a bat mitzvah? What is David Brooks trying to prove? Maybe that he is no longer the loser he was seen to be as a kid growing up in Brooklyn. David Brooks' father works in a garment factory and suffers from a crippling bone disease, causing him to be just under 5 feet tall. And some believe his father's illness has a big impact on David Brooks.
All throughout his childhood, his family was subject to tremendous ridicule because his father had this unfortunate condition.
Luke Brindle Kim, a former union researcher, now a private investigator, is researching a book about David Brooks.
So what happened with David is he developed a tremendous chip on his shoulder from just how pitiable his father was.
Eventually, the Brooks family moves to Long Island. And there, at the Roosevelt Raceway, Brooks is drawn to what will become a passion for him, harness racing.
At the age of 14, he went to Roosevelt, learned how to groom horses, became in love with horses and the horse business.
Soon, he is picking winning horses at the track and learning to pick winning stocks on Wall Street. By 1986, he and his brother are running a stock brokerage business. And in almost no time, David Brooks is a millionaire.
He was incredibly smart, and everybody who has met him in any sort of business or professional capacity says that he has a sort of singular intellect, that he's brilliant when it comes to numbers, when it comes to working out figures in his head.
But he also appears to play fast and loose with the law. In 1992, following allegations of insider trading, Brooks is fined and barred from the securities business for 5 years. And so he begins a holding company to invest in a variety of private businesses. David H. Brooks named it after himself, DHB. It is eventually listed on the American Stock Exchange. He sets up his office in his house in Old Westbury, Long Island, and hires a former federal prosecutor as president, Douglas Burns.
The reality is, it seemed like a fabulous opportunity because he was a very, very successful businessman. He had a beautiful estate. He had a Rolls-Royce Corniche. He had a Bentley, multiple other luxury cars, Mercedes, Lincoln Continentals.
Brooks is successful and unusual. Burns realizes the job is not a good fit and lasts less than a year.
To me, business should be conducted in a somewhat formal atmosphere, you know, whether it's a boardroom, a conference room. This was a situation where David Brooks would have bills literally lined up on the top of his bed. Every invoice that needs to be paid, and he's got them laid out row by row on his bed.
But from his house, David Brooks is building a multi-million-dollar business centered around a bankrupt body armor company he buys called Point Blank. He hires Jim McGee, a retired Marine Corps colonel, to run the company as its president.
Pretty soon we had 130 some odd sewers, had a full office staff. We were rocking and rolling. We were a pretty good company.
Early on, McGee says he increases the pay scale for his sewers by a few cents an hour. And soon, a call comes in from New York.
Well, you can't do that. David's having a fit. You have to reduce the pay. You have to produce more. You have to do it with less. Cut back on your people. What's all this quality control crap?
For McGee, who wore body armor in combat, Point Blank offers an opportunity to save soldiers' lives. For Brooks, that appears irrelevant.
David's sole interest in life was money. He couldn't care if we were making stuffed pandas. And as long as every day I was shipping $20,000 or more worth of pandas. He was solely interested in what is my revenue today.
He would just constantly, almost like on auto dial, be calling, McGee, please, always asking for Jim McGee, and then just peppering him incessantly with questions. How are the sales today? How are the sales this week? How are the sales?
He literally called me 2 o'clock in the morning once at home and said, you spent $605 a yard for Decker and light blue Decker and cotton. I said, yeah, I used to spend $623. Oh, all right, click.
And while Brooks is hounding him, McGee is about to deliver Brooks the gold he is looking for, a game-changing design for a bulletproof vest. It is called the Interceptor.
It was high on the side, so it covered exposure as you've got when your arms are up with a rifle. It had a plate pocket in the front and a plate pocket in the back to handle plates that would stop a rifle-fired bullet. This was a really good vest, a huge step up.
And with this design, in 1998, McGee wins Point Blank an $82 million contract to produce interceptor vests for the U.S. Marine Corps. It is just a start.
Billions are in play here. And Brooks had the monopoly on the design of the interceptor vest at Point Blank.
As time goes on, McGee looks at the business accounts and comes across strange expenses.
I'm looking at my January billings, and I see that I'm spending $6,000 for presidential towers. I had no idea what that was. About $5,000 or $6,000 for Gianni Versace. I'd never heard of him. And he certainly wasn't one of my sewers, and if he was, he'd sadly be the most expensive freaking sewer on the planet.
Presidential Place. That's the location of Brooks' oceanfront condo at the Boca Raton Beach Club, reportedly one of the most prestigious addresses in the area. And though the name is lost on the former Marine Corps colonel, Gianni Versace is a favored designer of David Brooks.
He was into what you would describe as, very, very expensive garments. He'd say, this t-shirt's $1,100. What do you think of it?
Over the years, McGee also sees something fishy with the inventory reports.
The unit numbers were wrong. So now I had not just charges that were completely unethical, if not illegal, that were obviously personal charges for personal benefit. I also had a fictitious inventory.
Whenever he confronts Brooks, Brooks tells him it's none of his business.
And I'm about over my head and shut up, it's none of your business. And I'm fed up. So I told him in unkind language to himself and said, go to your fax machine because I quit.